Mr. Hurd from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and gentlemen, appreciate y'all being here today. You know, Director McGraw, Sheriff Martinez, and Judge Trevino, you've helped educate me on this issue, and Sheriff Wilmot, your testimony today has given me 3 or 4 things that I didn't know about before, so thank all of y'all. My first question is to the 2 sheriffs, and maybe Sheriff Martinez, you first. We talked about Stonegarden, and Sheriff Wilmot in his remarks talked about moving those funds back to DHS from FEMA. Is there other uses of Stonegarden is restrictive in how you can use those funds. Are there other areas where currently right now you can't use Stonegarden funds that you wish you could? And Sheriff Martinez, let's start with you, and then Wilmot, and Director, I'm sure you have some opinions too.
I think on the Stonegarden funds, it has to be a little bit of flexibility. Border Patrol, DPS, every sheriff is short on manpower. And we're talking about hiring all kinds of people. So I'd like to see that same opportunity extended to the sheriffs to be able to hire manpower to support securing our border.
And Sheriff, because that's because right now you can only use Stonegarden funds to pay overtime. Is that correct? And you would like to be able to use those initial funds for the first year salary or something like that?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Excellent.
Congressman, I've been listening to the sheriffs talk about this for a good 7 years. I mean, what's frustrating, they can only eat so much overtime. You can give them all the overtime in the world, they got only so many deputies. And for them to use that money, if you would allow them to use it, okay, as an agreement up front, that this is only as long as the money is there, a deputy, now all of a sudden they've got an increase of resources in the area. And that's better for Border Patrol, that's certainly better for the state as well. And there's value in that investment. And so there's other funding streams that are far more flexible than Stonegarden funds, although we like what the DHS did with that, you know, being allowed to at least let them use. And of course, the state doesn't benefit at all. We don't get any use of it. Stonegarden funds aren't allocated for state police agencies.
Sheriff Wilmot, you have some opinions?
Yes, sir, I do, and I'll be more than happy to throw those in there. In regards to Operation Stonegarden, obviously it's labor intensive, just doing the reporting requirements as well as the purchasing of the equipment that we need. It also restricts the type of equipment that you need going through FEMA. Another thing is, in regards to Stonegarden, is that you can only use so much for overtime, and then you have to use so much for equipment, and then so much for mileage on your vehicles. So it's broken down, then you can't change the percentage at all. So it's something that, and this is the one true grant that actually comes to the sheriffs to actually allocate out to local law enforcement as well, at least in Arizona, as well as share with other counties along our borders and the state as well, if they can help complement our operations. So that's where we need to keep it. DHS is more qualified to say, yes, this type of equipment is what we need for this location, because again, we can't paint that broad brush across the whole border.
Good copy.
So,
thank you. And Director McGraw, my next question is for you. When I got elected and came in last Congress, we had a lengthy debate about what operational control of the border actually means. And you know, in your materials, you provided the Texas border security levels, and I've always fought to use DPS's perspective on what operational control means, because of all the arguments and conversation I've had on this, it seems to be the most thoughtful. So first question is, you know, have you seen reticence in some of your federal partners in adopting a similar framework? And do your partner states have a similar, do your peer organizations have a similar perspective on what operational control of the border means?
I don't believe that's the case right now, but we've been working with our legislature and the governor's office to be able to do this, to be able to have some standards. So, and I have, you know, frankly, have not looked at some of our peers. We have looked at our federal partners. You go back with any GAO study back to the 90s, and it's the same thing all over again. It's you can't use the number of illegal aliens to predict success and failure. You have to come up with something more substantive. Technology has allowed us to do that now. Now we can actually identify and track out and map the level of security. So the focus that we've come up with is just simply figure out what those levels of security are, agree upon what those variables are, count those variables, track them. And so, and the point with the evidence is that unless you can prove it, then there's no way to be able to justify that saying that we're at this point or that point. So you got to be able to prove it too. You can't just say, declare, I'm operationally in control. And the only way to do, the advantage we have right now is, like I said before, GPS will allow you to do that. Both the infrastructure, both in terms of technology, and the coverage level, and your interdiction capacity.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your leadership on this topic, and we need you to keep talking about this because, again, as we get into those debates again up here, we need to have a common. We need to be speaking the same language. And I've run out of time, but one thing that I'll be following up with all of y'all about is intelligence sharing, and how do we improve that? How do we make sure that we are able to extend our defenses, because let's stop the problem before they get to our borders, or if we know something is imminent, and y'all are gonna be the ones that get called first, not Border Patrol whenever there is a problem. So making sure y'all have access to the information and how we can improve that is something I'd look forward to talking with y'all about in the future. So, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.